Thank you very much. Welcome everyone to the Community Development, Housing and General Government Committee meeting for Tuesday, January the 12th, 2021. I'd like to read that due to safer at home order, all committee members are participating virtually. For virtual meetings, committee members will be muted until asked to be heard. And when there is a vote, it will be necessary to take a roll call vote. A committee member will be recognized, raise their hand, and state their vote. Committee members are Councilmember Annette Scipio, Vice Chair, Councilmember Robert Clark, Councilmember Kevin Mundy, and Mayor Pro Tem Dee Dee Adams. What we have today is we have 11 consent items, and we have 3 general agenda items. We have heard from the council members that they would like, some of them would like C2 and C4 pulled. Are there any other consent agenda items to be pulled? If not, may I have a motion to approve the balance of the consent agenda? Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams, I would like to pull C8, if you would, please.
Okay, C8. We have C2, C4, and C8. And may I have a motion?
Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry, this is Sharon Richmond. If these items are going to be pulled for discussion, there's item C7 where the property owner would like to speak and a neighbor would like to speak on that particular item. That's item C7.
Okay, we have the housing demolition items on the agenda this month.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll move the balance on the approval on the balance. This is Clerk.
Second.
The balance except for the housing items, Councilmember Clark, or everything except?
No, I've got written down 2, 4, 7, and 8 are the ones we pulled.
Okay.
And I make a motion on the balance, not counting those.
Okay. Can I get a second, please?
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the balance of the agenda, except for.
Ms. Adams, Mr. Mundy has a comment.
I was seconding, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
We have a move for approval, Councilmember Robert Clark, seconded by Vice Chair Scipio. The balance of the consent agenda, except for consent items 2, 4, 7,
and 8.
And 8. All those in favor of the roll call vote, Councilmember Vice Chair Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
And Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Adams, yes. And it has been approved. The motion's been approved. City Clerk, may we start with the first item, please?
Item C2, ordinance amending sections 5230, 5231, and 112 of the Unified Development Ordinance pertaining to the use-specific standards and definitions of the Family Group Home A, Family Group Home B, and Family Group Home C uses.
Councilmember Scipio wanted this pulled, but we also, Councilmember Scipio, if you have a question or do you want a small presentation on this?
I just had a question, a couple of questions about this. My question is, it seems, I just want to make sure that these 3 group homes are distinguished by the number of residents that can be in each home. And I also wanted to have an understanding of where can these group homes be located?
Mr. King, are you going to be responsive to this?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at it, and I'll probably let Chris Murphy join in as well. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council. Councilmember Scipio, you are correct. We do have 3 variations of the family group home use, A, B, and C, and each one of those corresponds with a resident cap. So I think A is 6 or below, then up to 12, and then 20. So those are the ranges. And depending on if you're a family group home A, B, or C, those are permitted and allowed in different zoning districts. Family group home A is allowed in all of our residential districts. When you get up into family group home B and C, those are not allowed in single family zoning districts. They're allowed in our multifamily districts, I think in our LO, our limited office district, and a few of our commercial districts.
Thank you.
Any more questions or comments? Councilmember Larson, you're on mute.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. This sort of originated out of the South Ward issue, and I think other neighborhoods and wards may have this question. And it arose out of how many people can actually occupy one of these group homes. And you heard there's basically 6, 12, and 20. The trouble that we were seeing, however, was that there's a provision allows counselors or advisors or supervisors to be located in the space, and they are not counted as part of the residence. And yet they were occupying the rooms and actually in residence in these houses. So you may have 6 clients, but also have 6 supervisors or counselors and have 12 people in the house. And that was the problem that we were beginning to see in the South Ward. So we asked for some definition to help us understand exactly the ratio, or at least defining who is an actual tenant in the house and then who constitutes a counselor. So I think correct me, Aaron, if this is not the purpose of this particular ordinance change, is to define clearly what the role of the counselors or the supervisors are in these residents versus who is an actual resident or occupant of the house. And the only question I would sort of have is to make sure that we're clear about what the ratio of maybe counselors to residents are, and under this ordinance. I didn't see anything that said there's a 1-to-3, 1-to-5 ratio. How many supervisors or counselors you could have in one of these residential units?
Councilmember Larson, your history is correct there. This did originate from an issue we discovered in the South Ward, and it revolved around the issue of what is constituted as a supervisor. And some folks that operate group homes have different models than others, and that came into question as we began to look into that issue and really dig deep into it. And so as staff, as we consulted with the city attorney's office, it became clear through those discussions that we needed to better define what was considered a supervisor for the purposes of a group home. And that was really where staff tried to stay laser focused on this request. We weren't looking to change zoning districts. We weren't looking to change spacing requirements. We weren't looking to alter the caps for the 6, the 12, and the 20. We just wanted to go into the UDO and provide what we thought was a reasonable definition of what was a supervisor. So if that question comes up again, whether it's in zoning enforcement or a reasonable accommodation that comes to council for consideration, we wanted to provide better definition of what that is. And that's what we've tried to do with this text amendment.
So, Aaron, Mr. King, so are we voting on this even though the public hearing is February 1st and it'll come to us then? Are we just hearing this for information? What do we have here?
It's an action item, Mayor Pro Tem. So it's going to be coming to you February 1st for a public hearing, and at February 1st, the full council will take action at that time.
Okay. Are there any more comments or questions? If not, may I have a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I move for approval of C2.
I'll second. Clark.
The motion has been moved and properly seconded. And I will do the roll call vote. Vice Chair Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Monday.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams votes yes, and the motion passes unanimously. City Clerk, next item, please.
Item C4, resolution authorizing acceptance of CARES Act grant funds and execution of agreements with local homeless service provider agencies.
I asked for this to be pulled, members of the committee and council members. Again, we're getting funding and community development staff and all of those housing and whatever, they do understand that we are at a point now whenever we acquire or receive funding for COVID, CARES Act, or any other government organization, we're at a point now that we have to address it and review it in committee meetings. Ms. Logan Ford or Ms. I can't think of a name. My mind went blank.
Understand, Mayor Pro Tem. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee and council. The item that Mayor Pro Tem was referencing, the City of Winston-Salem serves as the collaborative agency to apply and disperse funds from the state to local agencies that are assisting individuals that are experiencing homelessness. The item before you tonight represents the second round of CARES Act funding for the Emergency Solutions Grant. So I would ask our Community Development Director, Ms. Newman, if she would please go through the agenda item, the CARF that's presented, also discuss the funding process in terms of how the agencies are selected to receive the allocation. And then we also have an exhibit that's attached to the item that's in your packet that shows the CARES funding received to date and where we are in the process of distributing those funds. Ms. Newman?
Before Ms. Newman, and I apologize, Ms. Newman, for not being able to recall. Are we going to show this, share this to the public and so they can see it right now?
We can share the exhibit. Ms. Martin, if she'll pull that exhibit up, Ms. Newman will go through the CARF and then we can actually show the exhibit to the public. Yes, ma'am.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Newman. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, members of the City Council. Again, I'm Marla Newman, Community Development Director. What we have in front of us today is an action item seeking your approval of the application process for us to seek funding from the state of North Carolina through the CARES Act, and this is Emergency Solutions Grant money. This is the second round, as Ms. Logan Ford mentioned. This particular round of money is $944,181. The state has identified that in their particular request for application, which the city would be making that application, that housing stability services or activities be prioritized at 60% of the funding. So in other words, 60% of this $944,000, the state is showing a preference that those funds be used for housing stability activities. Those activities run from the areas of shelter essential services, shelter operations, rapid rehousing, and homelessness prevention. Those are the four main buckets that fall under this priority for the state. Part of what we do with any ESG monies and our work around the continuum of care and supporting persons who are experiencing homelessness, there's a multi-level process for approval. What we do is we do a request for proposals. We then take those proposals after staff has taken a look at them and provide those proposals to the continuum of care rating panel. That panel then looks at the applications and then they provide a funding recommendation. That recommendation is then made to the COC operating cabinet. They in turn weigh in on their desires for funding any of the particular organizations who responded to the RFP and who were then rated. Ultimately, then those recommendations are made to the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Commission on Ending Homelessness for final approval. That final approval, if you will, is then what we bring forward to council to move forward with any application then that we would make. What happens in this particular instance is the organizations that would be recommended for funding, we put that information into the application that we have to then submit to the state of North Carolina. This particular funding stream has an application deadline date of January 22nd. So based on your actions today and then with the full council on Tuesday, that gives us the ability and the authority then to submit the application to the state of North Carolina. At the time that we prepared this item, we still had the RFP out for organizations. And so that's why on page 2 of the exhibit that you see in front of you, it shows that for the NC Cares ESG CV2, at the very bottom, is showed in the planning phase. The funds for this have already been reviewed by the council on, or the Commission on Ending Homelessness. And so we are now looking to provide recommendations to the state for a variety of organizations that will provide services under either the prevention category or the respond category. So most of the organizations are looking at either preventing homelessness or responding to those at risk of homelessness. This particular exhibit, as Mayor Pro Tem spoke to earlier, lists from beginning to our current status all CARES Act funds that have been allocated, if you will, to the city of Winston-Salem. If you look back at the first page of this, you'll see a breakdown of the various organizations, how much they received, what the activities were that were funded with those particular allocations, when those grant types were actually awarded to the city, and how much each of those categories were for. So, and then you'll see a status column. So it tells you what's been contracted and allocated and where each of those items stand at present. So this is that matrix that we continue to update every time we receive any notice of an award or allocation. So in some of the instances, we may not have actually drawn the money or had it deposited into our account. But when we receive an award letter, we start the process of doing requests for proposals so that we can, as quickly as possible, respond to the need that the dollars are being allocated to cover. I can pause at this point and see if there are any questions from the committee or chair.
Thank you, Ms. Newman. Any council members or committee members have any comments or questions?
Yes, I have questions. I believe Vice Chair Scipio does as well. Vice Chair, I'll defer to you.
I'm sorry, I don't see everyone like everyone thinks we do, but Vice Chair Scipio, you're up, and then Councilmember Monday. Councilmember Clark, did I see your hand?
Yes.
And then Councilmember Clark. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Newman. Good report. Just a quick question. Is it possible for us to get a report from the agencies that did receive funds, how they have used them so far, and if there's any monies left over that they haven't used from the first round of funding, just to verify that they were used for the purpose that they were granted?
Yes, ma'am, we can get that report for you.
Okay.
Councilmember Monday.
My question, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My question was very similar in asking, do any of these funds still remain? Are any funds available to help people, or have they all been used? And then the other question I have is, with the guidelines that we place on our agency partners, how much are they able to spend on overhead, if you will, on associated costs versus what percentage goes directly to paying rent and helping with the end user, if you will?
So all of the grant guidelines provide what percentage could be used potentially for operating expenses or overhead. That's controlled by federal regulations. In some instances, some organizations actually opted not to use any of the funds for operating and used it all to go out to the services that they provide. As far as individual grants and those things, we would have to go organization by organization to tell you where each of them stood or what their contract allowed for. But that is also information that we track and we can provide a report on.
Okay, so ultimately, that's driven by federal government. Those are not our guidelines on administrative costs.
That is correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Clark.
Thank you, ma'am. You can get back with me later on this, but I would like an email or something from what process we're going to use on the next round of money, which is the 8.4 million that we have talked about at the Finance Committee yesterday. Just what kind of procedures are we going to use to set up the procedures, I guess. So just some information on that would be nice. Kind of get ahead before we get too far into it. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Larson.
Hey, Pro Tem, thank you. Do we have any idea? We know that the pandemic had a profound impact on a whole series of issues, unemployment, housing, what have you. And we expected then a rise, of course, in those needs, which these grants are designed to mitigate. We also know that the organizations that we're giving money to have already set in place certain procedures and facilities to help address that need on an ongoing basis. My real question involves around upping the game in the sense of how many additional beds or how much service has actually been provided with this funding. Do we have any way of knowing what kind of service count, number of individuals who have been housed, number of individuals that have been helped by these particular grants within Forsyth County? And I'm assuming that if we were to look at, say, a year ago, before the pandemic hit, that we would see the numbers being considerably less on a monthly basis.
That is
I'm trying to understand the impact that these fundings have made in the daily lives of the people that have been most impacted by the pandemic economically, and housing and food services and things like that.
So we can certainly provide information on the extent of the impact. I will add, though, that the overwhelming majority of this money is ESG money, which is to prevent homelessness or to provide services for those experiencing homelessness. So while we do have some data that shows that there are individuals who moved to housing stability during this period of time, which was one of the stipulations, for instance, with the medically fragile shelter, was that everyone who was admitted be assigned a case manager so that when they left the shelter, they would move into housing stability. And I have to look at the numbers. The last number I recall was somewhere between 25 to 30 individuals have moved to housing stability. Overall, I think we can definitely pull the numbers to see how many persons have been served in the various shelters and other agencies that receive funds to support them.
I think it's at some point that summary of impact would be useful for us to understand really what we've accomplished with this COVID money.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Ms. Newman and Ms. Logan Ford, along with our ever-growing Exhibit 1, the Matrix, again, I would like to see the total number. I need to see the running number. Like, you have the funding in the columns, but I need to see a total number as of like today. How much money have we received and how much money is in the pipeline to receive? To the comments and suggestions of council, this is a work in progress, this document, this exhibit of how we see data, so we can see what the impact is. And we talked about that before, like a lot of people think we get this money and we can do anything we want with it, but we can't. The money is hinged on HUD regulation or state regulations or even the county. So I think we need to see that too, that maybe there's a legend or something that kind of denotes whether it's maybe even joint, that it's HUD, state, county, that we're under those regulations as to how we issue this money. And I think also, again, that a lot of people don't understand what emergency shelter is and what rapid rehousing is. And if we could somehow, again, put a small legend at the bottom, so when we pull this up, people can readily refer to it without having to wonder what all of that means. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
And we're gonna need one for the other side, and maybe we put it with this one, but anything that has to do with housing, the other money that's coming down, as Councilmember Clark said, with the 8.4 million.
We can do that
All
as
right.
well.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Is this, may I have a motion to approve consent item C4?
So move.
Second.
All right, the motion has been moved and properly seconded by Vice Chair Scipio and Councilmember Clark. Now we will have the roll call vote. Vice Chair Scipio,
Yes.
Councilmember Monday,
Aye.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
and the Mayor Pro Tem votes yes as well, and the motion passes unanimously. City Clerk, next agenda item, please.
Item C7, SDS Investments LLC, 3006 Walnut Avenue, located in the Northwest Ward.
Ms. Richmond,
Thank you.
you have the floor.
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the council, and distinguished guests, and Happy New Year. The first item that we're talking about is item C7. Item C7 starts on page 4. Thank you, Meredith. This is a property that has come into consideration, for your consideration, in regards to its demolition status. Our office has done the due process, sent all notifications to the property owner of violations through certified and regular mail. There are 10 violations on this property. A list pending was filed on the violations and submitted to the county clerk's office in September of 2018. A hearing was held. A repair or vacate order expired, which is the second letter. The hearing is the first letter. The second letter, which is a repair or vacate order, expired on September 14th of 2019. This property became eligible for your consideration in March 24th of 2020. The estimated cost to repair the structure is $1,500, and the fair market value of the structure is $20,000. There is a recent, thank you, the next pictures that you see are a series of photographs that we have from 2020, inside and on the exterior. And then the last two bottom right, or the mid and right pictures were done January 6th of this year. The customer or the property owner has contacted me, and representatives from his office has contacted me yesterday and this morning. They have some updates and requests regarding the property. And just a few minutes ago, a neighbor called and also wishes to speak. I believe his name is Mr. Chaplin, but the owner of the property is SDS, and they may have a presentation or a brief request to you.
Ms. Richmond, I'm Steve Smith.
Excuse me, Mr. Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
The chair recognizes the speakers, okay?
I'm sorry, excuse me.
That's okay. What you can do is give your name and address for the record, and we shall give you a couple of minutes to speak, and then we'll also hear from the neighbor of the community. And then we will defer to the council member of the ward. Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. Steve Smith, 500 Olive Street, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. I am the principal of SDS Investments. This house actually was occupied. There was damage done to the inside and the exterior when the police came out to the house and kicked the door in and did some damage inside. Since then, the house has been empty. I met with Bruce Bailiff, invited Mr. Bailiff, that's where you got the pictures, invited Mr. Bailiff in and went out and met with him, and he took some pictures. Since then, we've cleaned up the items and stuff basically inside, secured the residence. And at this particular point, I have two daughters. They're actually 28 and 30 that live in Town and Country. This backs up to Town and Country off of Renault Road. One of them was going to, hopefully we were going to rebuild this or actually add on to it, but I have to get a building permit to do that. And then she was trying to decide whether or not she wanted to live in it or continue to live with her sister who owns the house that she's in. What my plans are is, as I told Ms. Richmond, we actually got notice of this hearing yesterday. It was sent out on like the 5th, but we just received it. It came in the mail Saturday, but we got it, of course, back in the office yesterday. And we called Ms. Richmond when we got it. I've been talking to contractors. We plan to pull a building permit, go back in and remodel it back to the 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that it was and not add another bedroom. And I'm asking for, I think probably there's a 90-day time frame, but I'm asking for more than that. And the reason why is because of the situation we're in, especially with COVID and the construction. There's a lot of construction going on, but with materials and contractors to get them available, there's allocations on a lot of the building materials. And I think it'll take a little longer than that to get done. So that's what I'm requesting.
All right.
And go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Richmond, do we have the other call? Do I have the caller on?
I would refer to Meredith and see if that caller is waiting.
Meredith?
Yes, what's the name of the caller?
His name is Mr. Chaplin. He is 3002 Walnut Avenue, and I just received his call just minutes right before this meeting. And
I do not have anyone on the line.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I'll defer to the council member of the ward, Councilmember McIntosh.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chaplin and I have spoken several times about this property, and it's been over the course of several years. I know that he has been very distressed by the lack of upkeep and the vacancy that has been at this property for quite some time. I know he has reached out to the owner. I know that city staff has reached out to the owner. So it has been, I think, pretty obvious that the neighbors were not happy with this. The estimate of repairs on this house of $1,500, I'm struggling with how that number was come up with. There are holes in the roof. I mean, this house is going to take a lot more than $1,500. It's frustrating to see what could be perfectly good housing sitting and going to rot at a time when we need every housing unit we can get. I would be okay with a 90-day VDA, voluntary demolition agreement on this, with the understanding that at the end of the 90-day period, if we're seeing substantial progress being made, that we extend that out.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments from the committee or the other council members? Councilmember Clark.
Well, maybe Ms. Richmond can comment on this. Can we do that? Can we do a 90-day VDA with, as part of that, it'll come back to the committee in 90 days for verification or whatever review?
Yes, sir. Actually, the policy, what we have in place now with the city's policy, because of the category that this property was assessed in, they automatically will have 90 days if you vote for the demolition. They still will receive 90 days. We won't start the demolition immediately. But people in this particular category, which is the minus 50% category that we sometimes refer to, he will automatically receive 90 days. And then at 90 days, we can verify where he is in his improvements and give you an update.
Okay.
Are there any other comments or questions from the committee or council member of the Northwest
City
Ward?
Attorney.
I have a question, Madam Chair.
I have don't get me wrong, I don't know why I'm not seeing staff, or I see, the screen is different. We'll work on that next time. But the screen is different for me, so it's kind of hard for me to see who wants to speak right now. City Attorney Carmen.
No problem, thank you. Just a point of clarification, are we asking that the item remain in committee for that 90-day time period and that a report and update be provided to the committee at the expiration of that time period? Or are we actually moving the item forward to council for Tuesday? Just trying to ascertain what the thoughts are.
My preference would be to move it towards council.
Okay. The council member of the Northwest Ward wants us to move it to the council. That means we need a motion and a second.
I'll make that motion, and Mr. Smith, understand what we're doing is we're going to vote on the demolition, but you've got 90 days, and we will put this on the agenda maybe for 60 days or something like that. So we'll take a look at it again, but the clock will start ticking.
That's fine.
I'll make that motion.
Yeah.
May I have a second, please?
Second.
I have a motion, first and a second on item C7. Roll call vote. Vice Chair Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Monday.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, ma'am.
And Mayor Pro Tem Adams votes yes, and the motion passes unanimously. Mr. Smith, you might want to stay in contact with our community and general housing department as you move forward. City Clerk, next item, please.
Madam Chair, can I ask one more question for clarification?
Yes, City Attorney.
Sorry. So I understand that we're probably gonna, council's probably gonna add the 90-day VDA with that, and then also have it come back to committee in 60 days for an update. Is that the idea?
Yeah,
Just trying to
I
get
think
it
that'd be nice.
Okay.
Okay. I just want to make a comment about when we're doing this, and this is something for later when we probably have a committee of the whole or where we discuss this. I know we don't want to tear down housing. I feel that. But we also got to remember that when we do this, we need to be consistent on how we do this.
Mm-hmm.
We need to be consistent, City Attorney.
We do.
And we need to be looking at the demographics of how we are doing this. Okay?
We are.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you actually did this last month for an item of this nature. So I'm checking consistency, and that's why I'm asking the questions.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, next item, please.
Item C8, SC Deacons LLC, 2412 North Cleveland Avenue, located in the Northeast Ward.
Ms. Richmond.
Yes, this is, thank you, Meredith. This is number 7, item C8. SC Deacons update. We have an update at the end of this, but the property is located at 2412 Cleveland Avenue. The due process was followed for notifications to the property owner of all violations, and the minimum housing violations were counted at 13. The list pendants and all violations were submitted to the county clerk's office and were filed in August of 2019. A hearing took place in July of 2019. The repair or vacate order expired September of 2019. This property became eligible for your consideration March 8th of 2020. The estimated cost to repair the structure is $8,281. The fair market value of the structure is $10,000. And I was contacted yesterday by representatives from the Deacons LLC. And thank you, Mary, for showing the photographs from July of 2019 all the way up to January 6th, which was just last week. The next slide shows the update that I received yesterday in an email where I guess a member of the property management has asked for, I believe it's 60 to 90 days. And it's the property manager, I guess they have gone through some sort of transition, and the property manager was changed now, or has been changed to Baldwin Properties. And they're already in the process of getting repairs or quotes for repairs. The home was sitting for a while due to the property management and the poor property management, I'm sorry. And so that's the purpose of Ms. Imbert explaining this in an email, which I provided so you to assess in your decision-making.
Thank you. Is there anyone here who pulled this? Councilmember Mundy?
I did, Chair.
Okay. Do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, the reason I pulled it is the photograph. Well, I was under the impression that all, if not most, if not all of the houses that were scheduled for demolition were abandoned or no one was living in them. One of the photographs is clear that there was a resident, which to me raises the question, do we demolish a house when someone is living in it? Do we work with that person? Is that person going to have access to this money for emergency rental and rapid rehousing? This is the first time I've seen someone in one of these pictures, and it just struck me when I saw that I wanted to ask this question. What do we do to help this resident?
I'm going to let Ms. Newman or Ms. Ford or Ms. Richmond address this, or the city attorney, to help Mr. Mundy understand a little bit of what we do.
Thank you.
I can start. At the time that this particular property was assessed for violation, which the case number always gives the year the case was started, which is 2019. There was not a resident in the property at that time, or a resident or property owner that contacted our office after the certified letter requirement. And in all cases, there's a series of certified and regular mail that we send to property owners. So in terms of the demolition process for this, we've never torn down a house where a person was living in it if it was their property or a tenant was in the property. And we do know that we have different situations sometimes in the process that we have. There can be transitions that happen, but this particular property was started in 2019, but the short answer is no, we would not tear down or demolish a property where a person was actually living and they were the property owner.
Thank you for that.
What is the pleasure? This is in the Northeast Ward. Councilmember Burke, are you on the meeting? I know you are, I just can't see you. Okay.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Adams. I am in listening. I have read all of the information. It's clear, I believe, that due process has been followed, and this has been ongoing since July 2019. So I am fine with moving this to full agenda for council review.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members committee, may I have, who is that?
I'll make a motion like I did on the previous one that we move forward with the demolition and that we notify the lady in the letter that they'll have 90 days. And I would also recommend we put this on the agenda for 60 days to look at it again. But basically the same thing we did on the previous one. I'll make that as a motion. Thank you.
I would second.
I have a motion on the floor. It's been moved and properly seconded. A roll call vote. Vice Chair Scipio.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Aye.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
And the Mayor Pro Tem votes yes. The motion passes unanimously. Again, I just want to put it out there. If every case that we got coming to us, we start doing this, we're creating another system within a system in our process for our employees. So again, city manager and city attorney and housing, you might want to start having conversations, because this is kind of how we got backed up 2 or 3 years ago, because we gave everybody a pass that came that had violations. We gave them a second chance, a third chance, and by the time we got to hundreds of houses, everybody had 4 or 5 chances and passes. So I need you guys to look at the process. Let me know where we are so far as houses right now in the system that are coming to us, okay? Thank you very much. We have completed our.
Ms. Adams, may I make a comment on that?
I have a comment too.
Councilmember Scipio.
This is a little different in the past. We've actually moved demolition forward on these. All I'm asking is that we put a check in there 30 days from the demolition date, which would be 60 days out. Just kind of double check it. I will tell you, we wrote a check for $72,000 a number of years ago because we tore a house down that had been repaired. But I am not suggesting that we keep kicking the can down the road. The clock is ticking on these.
Thank you. Vice Chair Scipio?
Yes, Madam Chair, I do believe that it is important for us to save as many homes as we can, to respect those who own that property. But I do believe the public, these owners must understand that we can't tolerate their negligence in keeping houses in disrepair. It makes a bad look on neighborhoods. I'm willing to work with them, but some of them have been irresponsible. And I do believe giving them a chance, but we do kick it forward. That is going to be demolished. We have such a case, C6, that in the consent agenda. I remember when that young man came and talked about what he was going to do. Nothing has happened. It's moving forward. But I think we owe it to people who own property to demonstrate that they see it as something that they want to keep. I just hate that we have to demolish properties, but it is what it is. But we attest everybody that comes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Can we now move on to the first general agenda item? City Clerk.
Item G1, information regarding current issues impacting the timeliness of construction-related inspections.
This item has come to us by way of a request and some networking or collaboration with Councilmember McIntosh and the planning staff. And I am going to hand off this to him and Mr. King, Mr. Rao, whoever else needs to be a part of it. But I'm going to let Councilmember McIntosh have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I appreciate you allowing us to hear this in front of your committee. I'm going to give a little history, and then I'd like the staff to provide some background. And then, if at your indulgence, I'd like to allow a couple members of the Home Builders Association 3 minutes apiece to.
And Councilmember McIntosh, I'm going to do just like Councilmember Clark or you or Councilmember Taylor. We got a meeting that starts at 6 o'clock, and that's your committee, okay?
That's right.
All right, we good.
I'll be indulgent. So understand. So I was contacted by a couple members of the Home Builders Association who let me know that they were having difficulty getting their inspections done on time, essentially. And so that started a conversation or heightened a conversation that had been going on with the Home Builders Association and our staff. And let me just say that there's a very good relationship that exists between the home builders and our staff. There's a lot of trust between them. There's a lot of conversation. And so this is an effort to try to drill down to some ways that we can actually affect the timeliness of the inspections that we provide. And so I'm going to turn this over to Aaron King and have him go through some of the items. And then Scott Tesh is on, who's going to spend just a couple of brief minutes talking about budget impacts and how the fees that are paid for permitting tie into how that money is spent. So Aaron, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Councilmember McIntosh. And I believe Meredith is going to be pulling up a slideshow that Scott and I will go through as well. So, all right, hopefully everybody can see the screen there. So Meredith, if you want to advance to the next slide. So Scott and I just want to hit a few items, a little bit of background to kind of elaborate on what Councilmember McIntosh mentioned, some performance data that Scott and his team have compiled, and then a piece of this puzzle is the compensation that we have for our inspectors here in Winston-Salem, and really some of the challenges that it has presented that Councilmember McIntosh alluded to, and then we'll wrap things up. So that's kind of the outline of the presentation. Meredith, you can go ahead. Thank you. So just as a bit of background and education, I know we've got some new council members with us. So Planning and Development Services is a city-county department. So we are split into two divisions. The Planning Division provides services to all of Forsyth County except for Kernersville, Clemens, and Louisville. The Inspections Division, which we're primarily focusing on today, that division provides services to all of Forsyth County other than Kernersville. So we're a little different than your traditional city department. And really to drill down into this a little bit deeper, as we're talking about the Inspections Division, there are various services within that division. We've got zoning enforcement, we've got our permit office, and we've got plan review as well. What we're really focusing on today are our construction inspectors that are in the field. And those are the folks that are doing the construction-related inspections required by North Carolina general statute. So think building, mechanical, electrical, plumbing. Those are really the inspections that we're focusing on today, where there are some timeliness issues associated with. You see a breakdown of the authorized staffing for the Inspections Division, 8 folks in the permit office. So those are the folks that answer our calls, they schedule inspections, they issue permits, they do the review on single-family homes and additions, alterations, et cetera, among other things. We've got our plan review staff of 4 folks. Those are the handling those reviews and those topic areas in the back of the house. And again, where we're focusing today is really those 22 inspector positions that have been budgeted that take care of our construction control inspections. So there is as the state statutes lay out the requirement that we conduct these inspections, they also tell us that we've got to be timely in how we do that. And the standard laid out is once we receive a request for an inspection, we need to complete that within 2 business days. And Scott's going to share some data on that with you here shortly. Next slide, please. So I'll turn it over to Scott Tesh with Office of Performance and Accountability and let him run through some of the performance data, and I'll pick back up and wrap this thing up shortly.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the committee and council. We're going to go through workload, efficiency, and effectiveness data for the Construction Control Division. So workload talks about the amount of inspections that are being requested, and what you see in the chart there, the purple line are the number of electrical inspections that have been requested recently, and you can see there's been a substantial increase in the number of electrical inspections, and so that deals with not just electrical but also mechanical changeouts that require an electrical inspection. The other trades you can see relatively have stayed the same or decreased slightly, so it really is just an increase in electrical that's caused us the backload that you'll see here on the coming slides. Meredith, if you'll advance to the next slide, please. This slide is efficiency. The North Carolina benchmarking project uses an efficiency metric of inspections per inspector per day. And this is a benchmark that is used across not only the state, but really across the nation. This is how you figure out how efficiently you're getting to the requests for inspections. The blue columns that you see there are the city of Winston-Salem. And then the red line is the average of the other cities in the North Carolina benchmarking project. And so what this tells us is that essentially habitually over time, our inspectors are doing more inspections per day. This tells us it's not really a productivity issue that's causing the problem. We're getting to as many inspections as we should or we can. It's more that the workload is probably becoming an issue. And again, this data is a little old, coming from 2019, but our internal performance metrics will bear out that this has not been a problem in the recent months either. Meredith, if you'll advance to the next slide. Timeliness is the effectiveness component of this. As Aaron said, the state statute requires that we complete these within 2 days. The internal metric for this is that we actually complete them within 1 day, and that's also reported in the North Carolina benchmarking project. So what you see here in the line graph, again, that purple line represents the electrical inspections, and if you saw the number of electrical inspections went up as it went up, our ability to complete those on time went down significantly. So the other trades, not as affected. Mechanical changeouts are affected by this, but it's really the electrical component that we can't keep up with. I will turn it back over to Aaron to go through the next parts of the slide. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. As we put this report together, one of the important pieces of information we thought was valuable to share is just a peek at the compensation that we have here in Winston-Salem for these inspector positions, and compare that to the typical folks that we benchmark against, the Charlotte, Raleigh, Durhams, et cetera, along with a few folks in the regional market as well. So if you're looking at this graphic here, you can see the first column there on the left is the minimum starting salary, and you can see that we're not last, but we're second to last there in terms of minimum starting salary. And as you work your way across there, you can see level 1, level 2, level 3. So what that means is in each of those categories, building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, there are various certifications in there. So if you are a building inspector and you start at level 1, basically that level 1 denotes the type of inspections you can do. It restricts you a certain type and intensity of inspections. When you pass your exam to go to level 2, then they give you more responsibility, and then ultimately level 3 gives you the maximum flexibility and ability to inspect within those topic areas. So as you look at this, what you can see is the other jurisdictions either A, do not hire folks with level 1s, they hire at level 2 and higher, or B, they compensate inspectors when they receive additional certifications, whether it's in their specialty trade or if it's in another trade. So, and that's a valuable point because there's really 3 pieces there. One, and you can see in Winston-Salem, we do not compensate inspectors for additional certifications. So as we go out into the marketplace and we try to attract and recruit talent, we're having some challenges. You can see there with the minimum starting salary and the fact that we do not compensate inspectors for those additional certifications. 2, it also creates a problem in retention when we're not able to offer those same compensation pieces as other jurisdictions do. And then the third piece, and really the most efficient, the most important piece, is the efficiency piece, where if we have a house that's being built and there's a certain level of construction that's being done, and we have to send individual plumbing inspector, an individual mechanical, and an individual electrical out there, that's 3 staff members times, travel time, et cetera. Whereas these other jurisdictions are able to send one inspector out there who holds several certifications and can do all of those inspections themselves. So the efficiency piece is we're getting some challenges there, and that's not helping the cause. So we'll go to the next slide and then we'll wrap this up. So just to kind of mention a few things here, Scott noted the increase in the workload there. So that is, we don't have the ability to sort of shut the inspections request line off. We've got to take what comes in. Right now we're seeing, and we really have seen over the past year and a half, and probably into next year, a high level of workload. As I mentioned to you earlier, we've got 22 budgeted positions. We've got 4 of those currently vacant. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We have extended, or we're going to be extending requests or offers to fill 2 of those positions. We just got that information Friday, so hopefully we can get 2 of those squared away. Where we're at now, in just trying to manage this, is really triaging inspections to get to the most critical ones, and so that means others are really getting pushed to the back of the burner there, not in terms of life safety. Some of the less critical ones, they're getting pushed to the back burner so that we can try to keep things moving as efficiently as possible. And this has really had an effect on our builders and our homeowners. For our builders, it means longer construction times. It means difficulties in scheduling these inspections. If you've got somebody that's coming to hang drywall in a house and they can't hang that drywall until an inspector has seen the plumbing and electrical work in, behind the wall, then that person can't keep moving on. And so it's creating challenges there. And then for homeowners, it's also creating challenges as well in terms of our lengthy time frame there. We've tried to adjust some territories. That's the areas that our inspectors work in to try to gain some advantages there. We have done some limited amounts of overtime where our guys have been available to do that, to try to beat this back. And we've made some progress, but frankly not enough. And as I mentioned to you, a lot of the things that we're talking about here are laid out in state statutes. And one of the things the state statutes also does is lays out consequences for a department of being habitually slow to respond to these inspections. And we're doing that right now. So the first thing is calling chief building official and having punitive action against them. That's Dan Dockery, is our local chief building official. but that ultimately gets the state into looking at our business and how we're doing things and why we're slow. So that's not a place where we want to be locally. So I'll hit a few things and kind of wrap this up. I know we're short on time. As a director of this department, we're 100% committed to meeting these reasonable timeframes. We want to provide this quality, timely services as much as our customers expect it, and we're going to get this thing worked out. I'm glad to bring recommendations back to the committee. I know one of the things that's been thrown out is live remote inspections, the idea of using technologies like FaceTime or Google Duo to allow some increased efficiencies for things like changeout inspections. Dan and his team have worked hard to start doing some testing on that. Our guys are in the field working that out now. We've been putting together some of the back of the house logistics together to start getting that program up and running. So we're hopeful that'll gain us some time there and some efficiencies as well. And the last thing I want to mention is one thing that Councilmember McIntosh mentioned is I appreciate our builders being patient with us. We've had a good relationship with them for quite a while. I know they're frustrated. I appreciate their patience. And it's we're going to get this thing fixed eventually. So that concludes the presentation, and I'm certainly glad to answer any questions that either I or Scott can answer.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you would indulge us, I'm sorry, Councilmember Clark, I guess we take questions now.
Yeah. Aaron, any idea why electrical would jump up so much? If I'm building a house, seems like to me, you got plumbing, you got electrical, you got mechanical, that they would move in tandem more.
Yeah, Councilmember Clark, you're spot on in analyzing that data, and that is largely reflected by Duke Energy. Duke Energy, a couple of years ago, instituted a program where they're going back out into older homes in our community and changing out those services on those older homes and updating those with more modern services. So each one of those requires an electrical inspection only. So it's not getting the plumbing, mechanical, building. That's why you're seeing an electrical spike. And Dan has told me that there are hundreds, if not thousands of those in our community. And they've got a big team out there doing those, and we've got a little team that has to do the inspections. And so that's why a lot of that is why we're behind, and that's why those numbers in electrical are a lot higher than you see in the other trade areas.
Okay, when you say change out the service, you're talking about putting in a larger meter or something like that?
It's really a lot of those older services that were just, built before 1960. They're old and outdated. Duke Energy is going back in and replacing those with more modern infrastructure.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any questions from council members?
I do. I have a couple questions. Mr. King, of our inspectors that we have, are they all at level 1, or do they have additional certifications so that they can do multiple inspections?
Councilmember Scipio, the short answer to that is it ranges across the board. We have a variety of folks that have varying levels of certifications across the board.
And so would it be prudent to encourage them or have a way to get them cross-trained so that they would all be able to do those critical inspections at the same time? One person, one inspection?
So Councilmember Scipio, you're spot on right there. And that really goes back to slide 7, which was talking about the certification ladder. And that's where other local governments who have gone in this area, and they provide an incentive. So if let's just say you're a building inspector and you've got your level 1, when you go and get your level 2, they'll give you 2% or 3% or whatever that number is. And when you get level 3, they give you another 2 or 3%. And then if you want to branch out and go get your plumbing level 1, they'll give you another 2%, because the idea is you're becoming more efficient for the organization. You're able to do more work, and you're getting the overall operation more efficient. That is not something we have in place. So right now, I can suggest it all day long, but there's nothing to kind of move this along.
You make it sort of elective to people if they want that. And it's not necessarily tied to compensation at this point. Is that what you're saying?
Today, we have no program that compensates our inspectors for receiving additional certifications. We do not have that today. And that's what I was sharing with you, that as you look at that benchmarking data, that's where our peer communities and our folks in our regional market they all do have programs that do exactly that. It encourages and incentivizes folks to go out and get those additional certifications.
Right.
I would also like to add to your list of challenges is that we don't have any African-American inspectors in that department and haven't had them for some time. And I'm not certain if we have any females also or Hispanics. I think when we're looking at changes, we must consider that also.
Councilmember Scipio, you're correct. And so I want to be clear, our department is clearly supportive of having a workforce that's representative of our community. And our construction control position, right, construction control division right now, you're correct. We do not have any minority employees and we do not have any female employees. Our overall 65-person department, we do have a pretty solid range of diversity there. This is one area we've got to make some strides and to kind of get back to some of those hiring challenges. We've had challenges in just getting just numbers of folks to apply for these positions. So we're 100% supportive of that moving forward. And I think one of the things around that may be staff's had some, and there's been some higher level discussions about perhaps an apprenticeship program that might be able to introduce a career in inspections to folks to get them interested and show them what they can do in the inspections field.
And I have also recommended this, suggested this to the city manager. You may have some folks in other departments who are doing inspection kinds of services for those departments that you might want to look into relocating to your division and getting them certified, because they have folks in recreation, they have folks in maintenance and that are doing those kinds of tasks that probably just need to get certified and shifted. So I don't want to make Johnny Taylor and William Royster angry, but it might be a way for, looking within the staff who might want to come into that division and get certified because they have an operating knowledge.
Thank you, Mayor, Vice Chair Scipio. Who else had their hand up? Councilmember Mundy.
Thank you.
And then Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. Mr. King, let's take the electrical out of the equation for just a moment and assume that it's back at normal levels. You spoke of efficiencies. Do you think if we were able to offer these extra incentives to get 2 and 3 levels of expertise, would we be able to eliminate 1 or 2 positions and actually save money or at least be cost neutral?
Councilmember Mundy, the way I would answer that is, first of all, if we were to just start today and say we're going to institute a program that pays folks for additional certifications, then somebody has to apply for that certification, sit for the exam, pass it, and there's certain time periods about how far up in your respective trade you can move before you can go on to the next level. And then there's different time periods between when you can gain additional certifications kind of horizontally in other trades. So there's some time that's got to pass before we start to really realize some of those efficiencies. The immediate thing it does, if we were to have a program like that, is it greatly improves our ability to retain the employees we've got so that we don't have turnover and we can continue our work there. As far as eliminating positions, I don't know that we would ever gain that level of efficiency. That would, you're talking about a workforce there where you would pretty much have, a lot of folks with level 3 certifications to begin to even have that discussion. And right now, our numbers are currently very high. And what I can share with you and the committee and the folks here on the call is our planning board approved 1,000 more lots in 2020 than they did in 2019. So if you think about how that kind of carries out, that means more grading permits, more inspections, more permits. It's going to take a while to build out all of those lots. So we've got a lot of runway ahead of us in terms of work volume coming down the road. So I don't think we would get to a point anytime in the near future where we could eliminate a position because of all the efficiencies we've gained.
Council,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilmember Mundy.
Follow up with the electrical. Duke Power is doing this. Duke Energy is doing this. They want to get this done as quickly as possible. If we gear up for that with employees, once they're done, then we have employees in place and that rate of work comes back down. Are we in a position that we could hire contractors to handle the electrical piece of it who are not W-2 employees?
You know, that's a challenge, and that's one of the things that Dan and Chris and I have kind of, beat our head against the wall in is we've looked out to see how can we get more folks in here to help balance the load. Can we partner with somebody? Can we bring back retirees? Can we bring back any folks that can provide us some additional capacity? One of the challenges you've got right now is with the construction market as hot as it is, for us to try to recruit somebody in from the private sector, I showed you numbers competitively on the public sector side. The private sector side pays considerably higher than we do. So for us to try to recruit out of that private sector, we're not going to have much luck right there now, especially as hot as the construction market is right now. That's, if we could, we would.
Okay. Councilmember Clark.
Thank you. Dee, you cut off there. I was going to suggest, and I think this is just a report, that that staff bring back to the Finance Committee what it would take to put in a tiered system for additional pay for tiers 1, 2, and 3, and additional trades that someone would get trained for. I think Aaron is correct. It will take a while to get this where we want it, but at least it may stop the folks from leaving. Because right now, if one of our inspectors were to get additional training and certification, there's no financial benefit, but they would be if they went somewhere else. So I would recommend staff bring that back to us. I typically don't like to do things between budget, but this may be something we want to look at as soon as we can. I do remember, and I think it was probably in 05, 06, 07, when the economy was booming pretty good, that we had a similar problem of inspection issues. And the challenge there was the same. These are just not people walking down the street that you could hire. These are fairly skilled, trained, certified type of folks. And the big competition we have is with the private sector, where the salaries are even higher. So let's go ahead and put a plan together to address it. It may not solve the problem today, but it will get it going. And we'll also need a dollar impact to that to add these various levels to it.
Councilmember McIntosh.
Yes, if I could just indulge for 6 minutes to have a couple of speakers from the Home Builders Association.
Absolutely.
Greatly appreciate it. First off, Ms. Outer. If you could just identify yourself and name and address would be great.
Hi, I'm Emma Souter. My address is 1101 Vista View Lane, apartment 119, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27103. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the General Governance Committee, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm Emma Souter, and I'm the Government Affairs Director for the Home Builders Association of Winston-Salem. I'd also like to thank Planning and Development staff we have worked closely with for the past few months, especially Aaron King and Dan Dockery. Members of the Home Builders Association greatly appreciate their eagerness to work with us and to find a solution to this issue. As Councilman McIntosh and staff have already noted, the backlog in our inspections department is expansive. Not only does this leave city inspectors stretched thin and overworked, but it ultimately slows the building process in Winston-Salem. Housing supply is already low, and we need all hands on deck to ensure that new construction can catch up with the intense demand for housing. Delays in the building process translate directly to increased building costs, impacting affordability in the market. These delays aren't the only issues contributing to growing unaffordability in our market. As we start this new year, our builder members would like to give you some updates about the issues that contribute to the cost of a home. Builders face skyrocketing softwood lumber prices due to a combination of increased demand and federal tariffs on Canadian lumber. The spiking prices increase the average cost of a new single-family home by $16,000. Supply chain delays due to coronavirus are also affecting costs and delaying build times. In some instances, builders are waiting months for windows, appliances, and more. In addition to material delays, there is a significant shortage of skilled laborers, which we're seeing in the vacancies in the inspections department as well. As these delays occur, homeowners will pay more interest on home loans, negatively affecting the overall affordability of new construction. This affects renovations to outdated and unsafe existing homes as well. As you know, our market has a shortage of affordable options, and these delays factor into that shortage. As we head into 2021, we hope to ramp up new construction and necessary improvements on existing homes in order to address the supply issues contributing to unaffordability in the market. Turning to the issue of construction-related inspections. In addition to the salary differences across our neighboring municipalities, all of these said municipalities mentioned in the staff report also have a certification ladder to incentivize professional development, paying inspectors more as they work toward additional trade certifications. Pay increases by 1% to 2% as inspectors climb the ladder are noted in these municipalities. Adding this framework to our inspections department could potentially attract to serve more inspectors to our city. I will follow up with more information about this via email. The National Association of Home Builders is advocating for changes to lumber tariffs to reduce material costs. Our state association also advocates for relevant regulatory changes that would improve affordability across the state. And locally, we are asking council to work with us to find a solution to the problem our inspectors face. We believe it's imperative to attract new inspectors to our area, filling the 4 vacant positions within the department to ultimately decrease barriers our residents face in affordable housing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Aaron Lang, if you care to make some comments, just tell us who you are and where you live, and proceed.
Thank you, sir. My name is Aaron Lang. I reside at 1013 Oak Tree Lane in East Bend, North Carolina. Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the General Governance Committee, thank you for allowing me to speak on my experience with the backlog in building and trades inspections. My name is Aaron Lang. I am the 2021 president of the Home Builders Association of Winston-Salem. I am here on behalf of our 625 members, which include a variety of home builders, tradespeople, developers, and remodelers. I would like to recognize the members of the association that are on the call by asking them to raise their hand briefly in support of this issue that we are discussing this evening. Thank you. I would also like to thank the members of the committee and planning and development staff for their willingness to partner with us in exploring solutions to this ongoing problem. To start, I would like to share a few examples of how the inspections backlog impacts my business and ultimately the end user. While these are my experiences, I feel as though they are very common in our local industry. The company that I manage builds approximately 120 homes per year in the Triad, roughly half of which, 60 or so, are built in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County. Given the number of inspections required throughout the build cycle and at that volume that my company builds at, I estimate the potential increase to my overall cost to be about $50,000 to $60,000 on an annual basis. This calculation is realized in additional interest carry and additional costs associated with scheduling and construction sequencing issues that are created. This, along with other COVID-19 related labor and especially material shortages, has dramatically lengthened the time it takes to build a home. All of these issues combined have a direct effect on the cost and affordability of building a new home, making it less obtainable for more people. It also creates a bottleneck in our local economy, as most people that are moving into new homes must sell and vacate their existing home first. When they're waiting for a new home, there's another buyer waiting to get into their existing home. It's not uncommon to have these deals be 3 deep in this holding period. I'd also like to note that my company is building outside of Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, in jurisdictions such as Davidson County, Stokes County, and in Kernersville. We're not experiencing these same delays related to inspections. At the beginning of the pandemic, our industry was fortunate enough to be considered essential. It's a designation that our industry has not taken lightly, and thus far our business has increased throughout the pandemic. As of December 2020, there were 1,319 housing starts in Winston-Salem. Homes in Winston-Salem have been selling at a record pace, and inventories are at an all-time low. Due to this growth, Winston-Salem Forsyth County has seen a huge increase in the value of residential permits issued. As of December 14th, 2020, the value of residential permits issued in the city and county was $371 million, up nearly $69 million from the 2018 statistics. The cost of these permits create approximately $4 million in revenue for the city of Winston-Salem in 2020, and construction alone in Winston contributed $1.2 million to the GDP of the city in 2019. You can see from these numbers that housing is a significant component of our economy, and it's essential for us all to keep focusing on how we can improve housing-related government services to our residents, especially given the current economic and public health conditions that we're dealing with. This pandemic has only highlighted how important it is for people to own homes and have safe shelter available to them. Delays in inspections negatively impacts the affordability of homes in Winston, home buyers and sellers themselves, and the health of our local economy, as increases in regulatory fees and delays in the process are ultimately passed on to homeowners. The ripple effect of this situation creates, the ripple effect that this situation creates is enormous and also concerning. As always, we as an association and an industry are eager to partner with the city in improving the building process. We ask you take this information into consideration when approving future budgets, adopting new policy and procedure. We look forward to working together to find a solution to the problem, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Councilmember McIntosh, do you have any other closing?
Just as a quick wrap up, so I think if we look at this as what the city is prepared to do and will be doing is, one, to aggressively step up our recruiting process, which we've already done, to in a more medium term to bring technology to the table, to create a pipeline to bring interns in that more represent what the city of Winston-Salem looks like, and then the certification ladder, which I think is again a mid to long term solution that will greatly help us. So those are my recommendations.
Thank you. And again, Home Builders Association, thank you all for being on the meeting today. We don't take you lightly. We know how important you are. You're helping to keep us going, even though we like walking and dragging our way economically, but we realize those institutions and organizations that bring revenue to cities. We as elected officials, we understand that. We look at the numbers, as Councilmember Clark said, and him saying that he wants it in finance, that's a big plus. I met with Aaron and the Councilmember McIntosh and Mr. Tesh. I understand the urgency of this. I think we all do. And this is not a moment where we have an opportunity to say, wait a minute, let's think about this. We don't have time. Because if we look at other cities and see the monetary hurt that's being done because we can't deliver the product to our customer, then as a business person, we are, supposed to make the necessary and corrective changes as efficiently and expediently as we can, and not compromising the process, but getting to you the services that you are providing to your customers. And in the end game, the whole city benefits from it. We began to grow the revenue even more. And what helps us is understanding that we need to get more people into the pipeline to be a part of this that don't look like most of us on this meeting. We need to offer opportunity to citizens to be able to plow out a quality of life that they can grow with their families forever. We also need to realize that we need 15,000 units for affordable housing. And everybody knows the feds, we can't build it, not the city. We got to work collaboratively with organizations like yours that can help us understand how we can keep the costs down and get the units built in a partnership. So again, thank you all for being on the meeting, and I look forward to working with you in the very, very near future as we push this through to, again, make this process more efficient and more expedient. Okay?
Madam Chair, thank you for your comments, and we most certainly appreciate your position and respect your position as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. City Clerk, next item, please.
Item G2, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program Update.
Ms. McCullough, are you doing this one? Hello?
Good evening, yes. Sorry about that. Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Okay.
Members of the committee and city council. I'm Tanique McCullough, Director of Transportation, and I will be providing an update to you all on the city's DBE program, which was adopted by council on July 6th in 2020.
Ms. McCullough?
Yes, ma'am.
Because we're operating like this versus the other things so far as the as they say, the run of show.
Yes.
I have been told that because yours is, I think, information.
Yes.
We're going to hold that to next month if that's okay. I apologize for the late of seeing the text message. Okay?
No problem at all.
Okay. Thank you very much. City Clerk, would you please call the next item, please?
Item G3, resolution adopting the City of Winston-Salem's legislative priorities for the 2021 legislative session.
City Attorney Carmen, are you presenting on this?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, committee members, and council members. What you have before you is the city's 2021 legislative priorities package. It contains 4 bills and 1 resolution. The General Assembly will convene tomorrow, and this 2021 session may last well into the summer. As you all know, we do have 2 new delegation members. We have 7 members altogether, 5 in the House and 2 in the Senate. Previously, just for our new council members, in the past, the mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and council members would have a meeting with the delegation. This was pre-COVID. Since COVID, we have basically, council has adopted the legislative package. The mayor has prepared a cover letter and sent the package to the delegation members, and I anticipate that will happen this time around as well. Just briefly in terms of the bills and the 1 resolution. You'll find in your package, again, 4 bills, one of which, the first one is the conveyance bill, which allows the City of Winston-Salem, if the bill passes, to sell city property without going through the upset bid process upon terms and conditions that the city determines for affordable housing purposes. This bill was also introduced last year, but the General Assembly ran out of time and was not able to get to it. I do not recall there being any opposition to the bill last year, and I think it has a good chance of passing this time around. The second bill is the System Development Fee Bill. This bill basically, well, for our new members, system development fees are charges assessed on new development to fund certain capital costs related to water and sewer systems based upon the costs and the impacts of the new development. So this particular bill would allow system development fees to be waived for parcels that are used for affordable housing. Okay. The next bill is the stormwater bill. You all may recall, at least for our current members, that a question came up with respect to the legislative authority to engage in stormwater projects on private property. There is current legislation for counties that allow counties to engage in stormwater projects on private property, but the authority for cities is unclear. The purpose of this bill is to give that authority to cities with populations in excess of 200,000 to engage in private, stormwater projects on private property under certain conditions. So this is basically to address that authority issue. The last bill, which many of you have seen before, is a bill to address legislation that was passed in 2016, which limits the ability of City Council to allow access to body-worn camera footage. Based upon the legislation that passed in 2016, in order to release that body-worn camera footage, the court would have to sign a court order permitting that release. This particular bill would allow that footage to be released to the city manager, the city council, the Citizen Police Review Board, upon the signing, in closed session, upon the signing of a confidentiality statement. This is a bill that we've worked with Representative Faircloth on in the past and the city of Greensboro. And again, we're just trying to get it through the General Assembly this go around. This is a bill of particular interest to the Citizen Police Review Board, which, as you know, reviews appeals of citizen complaints. I would like to make a brief comment regarding that. In yesterday afternoon's presentation, there was a comment or two made with respect to the Citizen Police Review Board having additional authority, such as subpoena power. As most of you know, the authority with respect to boards and commissions comes from the General Assembly. And at this present time, much of what was asked for yesterday during the Public Safety Committee presentation with respect to citizen police review boards is not allowed by the General Assembly. So in order for the CPRB, which is our board, to have the authority be an independent body with subpoena power, we would have to get that authority specifically from the General Assembly. But the bill, draft bill in front of you relates solely to their being able to view body-worn camera footage in closed session upon signing the confidentiality agreement without having to also get a court order. Then the last item in the package is simply a resolution asking the General Assembly to look at creating additional revenue options for municipalities. The city of Winston-Salem, like other municipalities across the state, have suffered greatly due to COVID-19 in terms of revenues, and just asking the General Assembly to give cities additional revenue options beyond what we already have, which is ad valorem property taxes. So that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Attorney Carmen. Any comments or questions from the council, the committee, or the council? All right, I guess we're gonna vote. Could I get a motion on the floor to accept general agenda item 3, please?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Second.
It has been moved and properly seconded by Vice Chair Scipio and Councilmember Clark. Roll call vote. Vice Chair Scipio?
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy?
Aye.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
And Mayor Pro Tem Adams, yes. The motion has been passed unanimously. All hearts and minds are clear. Mr. McIntosh, I'm 2 minutes into your meeting. I think I did pretty good.
I think you did great. Good job.
All right. We will adjourn the Community Development, General Government, and Housing Committee as needed. Thank you very much, everyone.
Public Works will convene.